to the third sector. In our society, there are three sectors: the public, the private, and the nonprofit. And it's that third sector that we're here to talk about today. And my first guest is Beth Van Der Burgt with the Richmond Rose Garden. I almost messed up the title, Beth.
Hey, Rachel, no problem. we go by many names in this community, so whatever you want to call us.
Well, I'm pleased to have you today. I just drove by the Rose Garden yesterday, and Ron was with me, and he said, my gosh, look at the roses. They love this hot weather.
They sure do, and they were about a week to 2 weeks behind almost this year, because the end of May, May we had a cold snap, and then the end of May got kind of wet. So I was delighted being gone on vacation last week. When I came back, the color, it's phenomenal right now. So,
absolutely beautiful. Yeah. Well, for folks that are listening out there, maybe they're new to the community, tell them where the Rose Garden is located.
The Rose Garden is located along US 40, right in front of Glen Miller Park. Some of us call us the front door of the park. Mm-hmm. We are right in front of the Charles House, next to where First Tee happens. And we lease our land from the Parks Department, so we are an entity unto ourselves. I mean, they assist us a little bit, but we take care of that garden solely on our volunteers.
And there are no paid staff with the Rose Garden, are there?
Correct. None of us are paid. We're all 100% volunteers. We have about 30 to 50 people. 30 of them are very, very active at maintaining that garden.
To think that a garden that size with plants that need that much care and attention is done strictly through volunteers. That amazes me, but it shouldn't. We have such a generous community. But how do you do that? How do you get that many volunteers? How do you keep all of that under control over there?
We have many ways. We always are looking for volunteers. We train people, any walks of life, whether you garden or not, and we do it because we have a volunteer coordinator, Elaine Tiernan. Quite a bit is through word of mouth. Some of it's through, like, Petal and Stem Garden Club supports us. They take a section. We have a website, Facebook. If you call Teresa at the Wayne County Foundation, she'll hook you up with me. And there are several ways. The new Wayne County Tourism website, we're part of that as well. So we have maybe half a dozen ways that you can get in touch with us. The other way is verbal. When you see people working in there, they will come up to us. We'll take your name and phone number and make sure that we get a hold of you and get you working in the garden, because it takes many hands.
Do you have any idea how many rose plants, and there are other flowers out there, how many plants you have that you take care of?
Well, we have approximately 1,100 rose bushes. We have some annuals that we plant. Marigolds are what we've been doing because they have several benefits. Color, they also kind of keep bugs away and things from the roses. We have about approximately 100 varieties of roses. And yeah, we about 1,100, which is a lot of rose bushes that need care.
Do you know how many varieties that represents?
I think it's about 50 to 100. I actually take care of identifying them. We keep a list. One of our goals is to create like a self-guided tour where it would be signage with QR codes so that people could just have their smartphone and, you know, if they look at a rose, hey, what's it called? Where is it? What is it about? You know, and that kind of thing. But that's something we're working on. So yeah, we have many varieties, and we choose to intersperse the color. There are some rose gardens across the country that they'll have different sections will be different colors, but we've decided to follow what they started when they started the rose garden in '87, and we just intersperse the color.
It's just a beautiful place out there.
Yeah, we also have a walkway along the fence where you'll see memorial bricks, and people can, for $100, they can buy a brick for a loved one who's passed, a loved one who's living. I believe there is one that talks about an engagement. There's like class of '72. Anybody that's connected with the Rose Garden seems to have put a brick along that walkway inside the fence line. And I just walked it again recently, and there were several of our founding members have people with memorial bricks there, and it helps me to hey, boy, I remember working with this person and what the Rose Garden meant to them and how I'd like to carry that on for our community.
My younger son and his now wife got engaged there, and so it's always got a special place for our family.
Yeah, we just had a special first dance of a wedding at the gazebo. There was a couple who, he actually had volunteered in the garden with Branch Out Day with Seton High School. And he and his fiance ended up getting married in Richmond due to COVID, and they couldn't have much of a ceremony. So his family arranged that they would have their first dance in the gazebo.
Oh, that's just perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, that's the first time that's ever happened, and I thought it was the coolest thing.
That is so romantic, and
yeah.
You don't have to buy the flowers. They're already there.
Correct.
Well, tell us a little bit about how the Rose Garden got started. How old is this organization? How long have we had this beautiful garden in our community?
Well, the part that I call the Richmond Rose Garden is really originally named the All-American Rose Garden, and it was started in 1987. And it actually was an offshoot of the explosion in '68. It took the community that long to come up with some ideas for positive areas and positive things in this community. And the selection of the location is due to the E.G. Hill Garden. And E.G. Hill is right west of us, and it's been there since 1937. So when it celebrated its 50th anniversary, the Richmond Rose Garden was born. And yeah, so some of the roses are 25 to 30 years old, which is about the length of a rose, a hybrid rose. So we are starting to see quite a bit that we're needing to replace some of the roses. And then we lose some each winter because the winters here are funky. As you know, in Indiana, we never quite know. We do winterize the roses, but sometimes, we lose just depending on what happens.
And the aphids and all the other things that can happen to them.
Last season was Japanese beetles, so I'm hoping they're not coming back this year.
Yes. So as a nonprofit organization in our community, how are you governed?
We are governed by a board. We have 13 board members, and two of them are lifetime board members because they've served so long. So we have a general, similar to everyone else, executive committee with president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. And then the rest of the board is the usual board.
Mm-hmm. And most of those are from Wayne County, or are they outside the community?
Yes, most of them are from Wayne County. Quite a few of them are volunteers, but you don't have to be a volunteer to serve on our board because we also need other skills. We have somebody who's really good at marketing and finance, different areas like that. And so a lot of times they'll end up volunteering in the Rose Garden as well because they see the benefit of it, or they just want to serve on our board because they see the benefit of us in the community. We do have one gentleman who's from Fountain City, and he's one of our best board members. He drives all the time to come and help us. So it's phenomenal, the people that you meet and what people are doing in our community.
And this is one of those things you really have to have a passion for. Being out in the heat and helping do that, and winterizing in the fall and waking the garden up in the spring. I just am really in awe of people that have this passion and can keep those roses alive. It's not one of my skill sets, I'll tell you.
I've met some people who are really, really passionate. Our volunteer of the year this year, Jeannie Campbell, I go on Friday mornings pretty early, and she's always there earlier than I am. Always. I mean, it kills. I'm just like, well, I'm going to beat her there. And she works her section, and her section's pristine. So I'm amazed at some of the folks I've met through being a part of the Rose Garden. Yeah. I kind of got involved myself by accident, by word of mouth, and someone invited me. And then I came to be very passionate about the roses and about what the garden does for our community. We're just trying to provide an area where people can almost get away from it all right here in the heart of Richmond and take a stroll and watch the roses. We've seen a lot of people, just because of this COVID going on, I think they want to get out of their house now that their neighbor. I mean, I went yesterday after the rainstorm. There were 2 people walking the garden. I didn't think I'd see anybody because it had just poured down rain. And the one lady she was a delight. She just was looking at all the roses. And I thought that's why I'm involved with the Rose Garden.
I think this virus has caused us all to kind of stop and think and maybe slow down a little bit and take some time to appreciate what's around us more. I know it has for me anyway.
Yeah, it has for me as well. And I've also come to appreciate our volunteers and the fact that many of them are continuing. We're not able to have our big work days so much. Our work outings are a little bit smaller. They're finally understanding about social distancing because some of us hadn't seen each other in a while and just really wanted to say hi and everything. But our volunteers continue to work through this. When we planted 100 roses this May. We had to do it like in stages. And we were really organized and got it done. And I was amazed because I thought, oh man, this year we're going to have trouble accomplishing this. And our volunteers all went with the flow and did what we needed to get done. It thoroughly amazed me.
In our last couple minutes, Beth, tell me, how do you pay for all of this? It's not inexpensive to purchase those roses, to purchase the mulch, to keep this garden up. How do you pay for all of these expenses?
We pay through them for all the expenses through donations and fundraising. And this year it's been tough because we weren't able to have our fundraiser. But we have still received some donations, even though we were not able to actually have an event. It's amazed me as well, the support we have felt from the community. I mean, it gives me hope that everybody enjoys the garden, because you're right. I mean, we pay to have our irrigation taken care of. We pay for mulch, we pay for the roses, all the chemicals that we have to fertilize with. And the expenses are more than I would have thought before I was involved with the Rose Garden. I had no idea till I was involved. And I've been a part of the garden since about 2009. I've been president for 9 years, and I've chosen to hang with the group because I just really am passionate about what we do for the community. And then the last thing I'd really like to share with everyone is we're going to be doing some construction this fall. We are going to revitalize the walkways, the paths that everybody walks, because they're pretty bumpy right now. We just don't want anyone to get hurt. We don't want a volunteer to get hurt. And we have been raising money for that for the last 5 years. And we actually have a construction start date of September. So the garden will be closed for a little while, but we are doing that to keep it up for the community because we would like it to be very safe for everybody who visits.
And will you be reusing the Starr bricks in your design?
Definitely. The landscape architects that we interviewed and then the one we ended up working with, all of them loved the Starr bricks. So we will be saving those, caring for those, and putting them back down into our garden.
That's such a beautiful part. It just melds in with the landscape and such a nice look at our history here as well. So I appreciate that. Yes.
Yeah, it connects us to a lot of the history of Richmond. And that was one of my things that I really was insistent upon, that we would keep the bricks.
So if folks are out there watching and they want to be involved in the Rose Garden, how can they get in touch with you or whomever is in charge of volunteers?
They can go to our website, which is www.richmondrosegarden.com. And down on the bottom of the homepage, it says email us under the contact us. That email comes directly to me.
Okay.
And then I can get them in touch with Elaine Tiernan as our volunteer coordinator, along with Ellen Johnson. And they do a fantastic job. Elaine also works with kind of training you if you're a volunteer. She's always willing to meet with folks and kind of show them the ropes.
Okay. And same thing if they want to donate?
Yes, same thing. The other way they can donate is we are through the Wayne County Foundation. They are our fiscal sponsor. So if they call Teresa Scruggs at the switchboard, or they can get to the Wayne County Foundation website right through our website as well.
Excellent. Time always goes so fast, Beth, and we've got just like maybe 30 seconds here to wrap it up. Is there anything you'd like to tell folks that we haven't already talked about today?
I think I would just like to tell folks to come out and experience the roses and to try to, get away from it all, whether it's your neighborhood, whatever you're experiencing. We are here for our community, and we like to encourage everyone to walk, to get out and exercise. And you know, we're right along 40, but the traffic doesn't bother me. I mean, sometimes when I'm finished working, I just sit and kind of take a break.
Yes.
And the other thing, I love to take pictures of the roses. I share them on my Facebook all the time. People ask me, how many roses do you have? They're in the rose garden.
They're absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. I had one friend who asked me if I knew every rose in the rose garden by name. And I said, well, not every rose, but I know a lot of them.
Well, Beth, thank you for your time. I know you have devoted a lot of time to this organization and volunteering out there in the garden, and I really appreciate it because I enjoy seeing the labor of your love that you put into that. So thank you for your time, and thank you for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me, Rachel, and I'm glad you visited the Rose Garden. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. And we'll be right back with more of The Third Sector. Welcome back to The Third Sector. My guest now is Tina Conti, Board President of the Starr-Gennett Foundation. Welcome, Tina.
Rachel, thank you.
Tell us a little bit about the Starr-Gennett Foundation. I know there are folks out there that have not heard of it, even though I know you've been around quite a while. So what is it and what is your mission?
The Starr-Gennett Foundation has been around for about 20 years, a little bit over, and their mission is that we aim to promote, preserve, and celebrate the legacy of Gennett Records and Starr Piano.
And I know a lot of folks probably think of the building in the gorge when they think of Starr-Gennett Foundation and all of that. What does that have to do with the foundation?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, Rachel, because a lot of people do notice the building that's down in the gorge by the Whitewater River, and that is the remaining building that is still standing that was once part of the very vast buildings for the Starr Piano Manufacturing Company.
Sure. So when you say that you're trying to preserve this history, what are some of the things that you're doing to promote and preserve this history in our community?
The way that we like to preserve the history is through our Walk of Fame that we have down in the gorge along a paved sidewalk that houses many different medallions that highlight different recording artists that recorded with Gennett Records in their studio, some down in the gorge in Richmond and some in their studio in New York, but many of them who passed through Richmond and came to the Gennett studio right down there in the gorge, right down from where the Walk of Fame, the medallions are, to be able to record their music.
And when you talk about medallions, I think sometimes people think, you know, those little things that you wear around your neck. But these are works of art and embedded in the sidewalk, beautiful sculptures, I would almost call them.
They really are, sorry.
No, go ahead.
The medallions are large. They are approximately 3 feet in diameter. They are works of art. They are created out of clay pieces like mosaic tiles, and also have some metal work that is there and they resemble a record. So part of the medallion will have like some of the lines of the record, and then the label that is in the middle of it. And then the artwork represents the actual artist. So we had hired in the past, they had hired a company that created these mosaic medallions out of tile in the likeness of the different recording artists through Gennett Records. And then there's also a plaque describing who the musician was and who helped fund the production of each of those medallions.
It's just a beautiful way to remember the history and the artists, and to be reminded that some really famous people recorded here in Richmond, Indiana.
Oh, there were some very famous people. I'm sure most people have heard of Louis Armstrong and our own Hoagie Carmichael from Bloomington. And those are 2 of the really big ones. Gene Autry also recorded down, with Gennett Records. So those are 3 really main artists that are really nationally known. If you're really into, country or Christian or gospel or the older jazz musicians, there are other artists that are also represented. And if they go to our website, starrgennett.org, there is information about all the recording artists and describing each one of the medallions that we have placed on the walkway down there.
It really is something that people should go see. And I know often I'm guilty of it. I forget all of the wonderful things we have right here in our hometown. But it's a beautiful walk. It connects to the Cardinal Greenway. So if you're on the Cardinal Greenway, just jump off and go see these beautiful sculptures that are embedded in the walk down there.
When you live in your neighborhood and your community, we do take our national, our local treasures for granted sometimes. So it's nice to be able to go down there. There's, the City Parks Department has refurbished the parking area and the building that's down there. So there's plenty of parking if you're not a cyclist through the Greenway, that you can go down and observe and learn about the history. And there's a couple plaques located down there that tell about the history of the medallions as well.
That's super. I know you also do programming with children and adults, and tell us about some of the programming that you do.
So one of our newer programs that we've implemented the last couple years is our Student of Music Scholarship. And this, starting for the 2020-2021 school year, we will be awarding 2 new scholarships for students ranging from 4th grade through 8th grade. And those are for any student within Wayne County that they can apply. Our first year, we were able to award 1 scholarship, and that provided weekly lessons and an instrument that he got to keep at the end of the program. And he also performed at one of our events that we hosted, where he was able to play some pieces that he had learned. Our second student was still in lessons because of current situations. His lessons haven't been able to be completed yet, but he's hoping to finish those up. And then next school year we've already selected our 2 participants, but we'll be making an announcement of the 2 new scholarship recipients. And those are programming that, we really would not have been able to do without funding from our community, our organization, from the Wayne County Foundation, from us being able to get grants and scholarship to be able to provide that scholarship for them.
That's a really neat program, and such a nice tie to your mission to keep music in front of the community and keep that tie to the history and the roots here in our community.
We're really excited about it, and we're looking at working with Richmond High School and band, and reaching out to other schools in the community as well within Wayne County to help promote, music starting, in schools, because there's kids that are just love music, and that's how they're able to give back to their community. That's what feeds their soul. And so if we're able to reach out to those children at a young age, then that to us helps us preserve and promote and even celebrate that musical legacy of Gennett Records and Starr Piano.
We talked about the Walk of Fame, as in the medallions that are in the walk, but there's also an event called the Walk of Fame. Let's spend a few minutes talking about that, because I know that's coming up fairly soon. Tell us about that.
Thank you, Rachel. We do have an event that happens every September. It's usually the weekend after Labor Day, and it is hosted down in the gorge at the Starr building, incorporating with the Gennett Walk of Fame medallions, called the Walk of Fame Celebration. And that is an event where we are able to bring our community together and host musical acts that can perform for our community, to be able to bring us together and help celebrate that rich musical history that, Starr and Gennett were both founded in. In the year 2019, we were able to put this event on for free for our community, and we had live music in a kids area. We had, alcohol beer garden separate for the adults. We had food vendors, for families. We had fireworks to set off the whole event at the end of the evening. This year, things will be a little bit different with current circumstances. So we're eliminating our kids zone just for the safety of everyone involved. But we'll still have live music. It's still going to be put on free for the event. Free for the community. And we will have vendors, and we will also finish the evening off with fireworks. So barring any unforeseen circumstances, with current events, that we will push forward and be able to host this event in September.
And again, another way that you help remind the community of these deep roots that we have with not only jazz, but as you mentioned earlier, gospel and country, and even spoken word was recorded here in our community. So just a lot to celebrate and remember as we look at our history.
It's really a deep history in our community, and I'm grateful to be a part of that, because to me, music is, you know, it can be a bond that brings us together through the various genres of music that we each may listen to. And when you look back at the history and think, you know, the Gennett family, you know, moved into Richmond for the Starr Piano Factory and then was able to start the Gennett Recording Studio. So to be able to bring those different musicians through Richmond and record right here, you know, right down there in the gorge is really something special. So we like to, you know, preserve that history, you know, with some of the buildings and be able to celebrate it through different musical events we have. Yeah. And we've been very fortunate to kind of partner up with the Wayne County Historical Museum of they're trying to help us celebrate our legacy as well. So that's wonderful. And when, you know, guidelines permit, we have some wonderful funding that we received from Kiwanis Club that we are going to put together a field trip for a class or two to be able to bring them down into the gorge and educate them about the history that happened right down in by the Whitewater River. And in relation with that, we're also going to be able to provide them with a trip to the Wayne County Historical Museum as well.
That sounds like a wonderful collaboration.
I'm very grateful for the collaborative efforts between both of our organizations and funding from our community partners to be able to, you know, promote that history and tell our youth about the musical history that started right here in Richmond, Indiana.
Mm-hmm. We've got just like a few seconds left. How do you fund all of these projects?
Our projects are funded by donations from our members, from some community sponsors. One of our really big sponsors currently is First Bank Richmond, and we also are recipients of grants, such as I've mentioned, from the Wayne County Foundation and from the Kiwanis Club. So through all of that you know, without that funding, we wouldn't be able to exist right now. So we're very grateful for our community that's able to give to us, you know, even when times are really tight, and for our community partners to be able to help continue to fund us and fund our programs that we put on throughout the year.
And if folks are out there and they are interested in making a contribution, how can they get in touch with you or the organization to make that gift?
We do have a Facebook page, and there is a donate button on the Facebook page for Starr-Gennett Foundation. You can also go to our website, starrgennett.org, and there's a donate button there. And then you can also send in any donations courtesy of Starr-Gennett Foundation to 33 South 7th Street, Richmond, Indiana.
Great. Tina, thank you so much for being with us today. Our time always goes so quickly, but I've learned so much today, and I appreciate all that you do as a volunteer in our community. And I just thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me, Rachel. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us for the Third Sector.